Hello everyone, we're here for a ban list and meta impact discussion in regards to the newest ban list that has finally been announced after several days, post KC Cup. A little late to actually react to it. It's all been spoiled to me. I've had some time to think about it. So what I thought we would do instead is something that I have done before, which is let's talk about what's actually going to happen because of this ban list. Now, it should be noted that we did not get a skill list update. And usually Konami does release one of those after the ban list itself. However, because we did just recently get a core app update, we cannot expect a skill list change until probably sometime mid or even late December, with the announcement coming end of November, early December, most likely. So there are a couple decks that were not touched with card changes. However, almost assuredly, they are going to receive a hit on the skill ban list change. And until we know exactly what that's going to be, unfortunately, we're just going to have to work with what we know. So, right off the bat, we have Chaos Form and Nina Ruru, the Magistus Glass Goddess, going to 1. This is a very obvious change. Konami has recognized that the Endymion / Magistus engine is extremely powerful and versatile for any deck that does not require its normal summon. So what they're going for here is because you are going to need to run your Chaos Form, it's going to remove your Limit 1 cards, such as Enemy Controller, the most common and popular one. And on top of that, even if you choose to run Endymion, you will no longer get the free value that the Nina Ruru back row pop gave you. Just like Odd Eyes, one of the best parts of the Blackluster Soldier package that I think people didn't really realize is that with a card like Endymion and just like the Dragon Pit Magician, both of these basically got to generate free value and resources by forcing out your opponent's back row. And in simplified game states, this became especially powerful, where you would have to waste valuable back row on what is essentially an unimportant monster in Endymion. So these two changes together are going to remove that entire interaction from Blackluster Soldier. Now, obviously, there is more, and we will get to that. However, before we do that, limited to 2, Vessel for the Dragon Cycle. A very minor consistency hit to Tenyi. Currently in the tournament metagame, Tenyi and Blackluster Soldier both tend to be the most dominant decks. Not overwhelmingly so, but enough that they stand clearly above the rest. And while Tenyi did not do all that great in the KC Cup, I believe it was like the 6th or 7th best deck, it is clear that because they are addressing Blackluster Soldier, they do not want to leave Tenyi completely unhit. Now, Vessel is amazing when you're able to pull it off, generating basically like a 2-for-1 value, and making sure that you have the ability to hit your ideal Berserker, Draco Berserker setup as consistently as possible. So by giving it a light tap, removing 1 copy, you will see that statistically a little less often. And I think that is a great way to start addressing the deck without having to really damage its ability to play, because while it is an extremely strong deck, I think it is a fair one, and one that I am personally happy is in the metagame and is something that you can recommend to new players as something to consider picking up. Next, here are the big changes. Everything from here on forward. Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the beginning, and we cannot talk about this without also including Endymion, the Magistus of Mastery. Taken together, you as a Blackluster Soldier player are going to have to decide which one of these are you going to play. And let's be honest, it's a pretty easy question to answer. You're going to play your Envoys of the beginning. So this is further removing the ability to use that value and package that Endymion gave you. A free +1 every turn by sacrificing your Artemis, or back row popping, or very rarely effect negation. While this is unfortunately a hit to pure Magistus decks, unfortunately those don't really exist. And because of the nature of the Duel Links Banlist system, this is one of the fairest ways to remove it from the deck without like completely obliterating it for others that wish to take advantage of this package. So Blackluster Soldier will be the card you're playing at 3. This also means that you are going to be losing access to your limit 3 traps. The most common one, of course, being Crackdown. So taken in combination, you're no longer going to be able to do your Endymion, pop a back row, Crackdown, steal a monster, both of them into a Nightmare Phoenix, pop another back row. Like, the power of back row against Blackluster Soldier is going to increase dramatically, which should tone the deck down significantly. Next, Orcus Nightmare went from limit 2 to limit 3, so now it clashes with the other limit 3 Orcus cards. This is Konami's continued attempt to address Orcus without completely obliterating it. Now, people are finding ways to make the deck still work in different packages. You've seen some experimentation with stuff like Orcus Charmers. Of course, the most common one being your Gandora Orcus. And this particular change won't necessarily kill the deck, but it is going to introduce more opportunities for the deck to brick, for you to not draw the pieces that you need when you need them, for the cycle to get disrupted. Konami's kind of just saying it's time to move on without completely just making it unplayable, because surprisingly, or perhaps unsurprisingly to some, Orcus continues to be an extremely popular deck. So I do think it is kind of smart of them to try and tone it down, continue to reduce its power and prevalence in the metagame, while still allowing people who are really dedicated to it to continue to be able to play it. No longer on the list, Jet Synchron. This is kind of a spooky one. You're probably going to see some discussion going around about how the Synchron deck is kind of approaching the point of where it was before all the hits. There is a possibility that they will address it with a skill list change. You will now have the ability to play Jet Synchron alongside stuff like Crackdown and or Mind Control, which have crazy interaction with the skill, the ability to yoink your opponent's monster, ditch it to the graveyard, get your 2 free Signer Dragons. Something I am pretty sure they're going to address, but if they don't, you are going to be able to go back to playing Crocosaur, set 2, have potential limit 3 back row, if that's the route that you want to go. A very powerfully positive change for Synchron players. I don't know if it's going to be enough to like really bring it back into the metagame. You will see it crop up here and there just because when it goes off, it goes off. But I don't think it's really gonna make it more of a force than it already is. It kind of already adapted to these changes, and the power level ceiling was not the issue. DD Swirl Slime, a definite positive change for DDD decks. Mostly this is going to let them play limit 3 cards since they don't really have anything on the limit 3 list anymore. Will this change anything? Not really. While they can deep draw with Jean Trainer, I'm not sure that is enough, especially with the way that the deck is traditionally built, to allow it to be anything more than it was. It's going to need more support to really push it back past its current boundaries. That said, for anyone who does enjoy the deck, you can definitely play it on ladder and have great success. You already could. This is just going to make it even easier for you. Take advantage of a couple, limit 3 traps that you can now slap in your deck instead of your Book of Moons. Melody of Awakening Dragon. This is kind of crazy. I don't think anyone expected this. A huge boost to Blue Eyes decks, which can now play limit 3 cards, such as, you can't use IDP or Crackdown very effectively. Terrors of the Overroot, Compulsory Evacuation Device, are some options that you might consider. But I think the low-key, kind of spooky and kind of fun change is this is a massive boon for Thunder Dragon decks, who can now very reliably find their Chaos Dragon Levianeers using this. Play 3 copies and play 3 Levianeers. Could we see some experimentation with Thunder Dragon? I'm sure you will. It remains to be seen, though, if that's actually going to be enough, or if there's just the inherently bricky nature of the deck will continue to kind of keep it out of top tier contention. Madolche Petting Cessor, another starter added to the deck, going from 2 to 3. This is, it's one more starter, so you're going to go from 5 to 6, depending on the version. You might have another one. Madolche is kind of a spooky deck. It's not fun to be on the receiving end of a double Cosmic or double MST into full Madolche combo. But they already kind of had the ability to do that, so I'm not sure this really changes that all that much. A welcome change, though, for people who enjoy the deck. Phantom Knights rank up Magic launch. The problems with Phantom Knights are unfortunately way more than whether or not they have access to an additional limit 1 card. Now, to be fair, any change is a positive change as long as it's in the right direction. You can run Allure of Darkness or Reinforcements of the Army. And Econ if you want to get kind of cheeky with it. But unfortunately, they're just going to need more support outside of any changes like this to bring them back into anything other than like low rogue status. Neos Fusion. This was, I think, the surprise everyone did not expect. Neos Fusion is the original Foolish Burial of Duel Links, and a lot of decks for a very long time took advantage of the ability to dump any monster level 4 or lower to the graveyard. You are going to see a lot of experimentation with this, whether it is just slapping it back into a deck so that you can dump Lunalight, or something like Witchcrafter. There's going to be a lot of brewing with this card, and I think that is fantastic, because one of the positive changes in Duel Links recently that I have personally been enjoying is the ability for people to kind of brew. One of the chief complaints against Duel Links at times is the fact that, unfortunately, decks can kind of be like auto-built for you because of the skill. However, in this situation, I think that Konami is kind of unleashing players' ability to have some experimentation. Odd Eyes was a recent example of a deck that saw a ton of different decks. You saw the Charmer skill because of the ability to put it into decks as a relatively small but meaningful package and take advantage of it. Neos Fusion is gonna be the same thing, and I will say it's a little spooky in the Hero Yubel decks with the ability to get out Neos Kluger even more consistently. Hopefully Konami will address that with something like a Banlist skill change to tone it down a little bit, although I doubt it. What we can hope for is at the bare minimum for them to cut the damage in half that the Neos Kluger and Neos Wiseman deal, because they are still at full power. The last change, Witchcrafter Holiday, this has been on the ban list for far too long. By removing it, you are gonna allow Witchcrafters to again start brewing. You can combine it with Neos Fusion, something that they did before. The Charge of the Light Brigade engine is available to them again. All exceptionally positive changes. Unfortunately, I do believe Witchcrafters are gonna not really be even close to relevant until they get some more future support, which they do have eventually. But don't be surprised if you see people experimenting with this on the ladder. Now, it should be noted that we did not get any changes in the negative direction for decks such as Odd Eyes. I believe it was the second best performing deck, if not the first, in the KC Cup. So there is a very strong likelihood that they are going to address Odd Eyes via a skill change. As mentioned previously, we might see a change to the Synchron deck via a skill change. One possibility would be that you would have to send a monster or monsters to your graveyard, not any graveyard, so that you remove the ability to mind control, crackdown, etc. your opponent's monsters and just get free value. Yeah. I did also want to show an example of what you might expect people to start playing as far as Blackluster Soldier decks going forward. And there's been a little bit of brewing on this front, and it looks something like this. Ignore the extra deck, it might be anything, but you might see people go the route of adding Archfiend Eccentric. This will become either your normal summon or back row disruption, as you do not need your normal summon, being able to normal summon Eccentric and deal with a monster on the field, or the versatility of popping a back row, which is what Endymion did before. You already saw them starting to play around with Effect Veiler. They will probably continue to do so. And then, of course, the most effective back row package that they're still going to be able to run. Your Book of Moon, your Warning Point, two easy staples that most people are going to have. Upping the Blackluster Soldier count just because you no longer have that card cycle off of Endymion. This might be something that you see a lot going forward, or something of this nature. Basically, don't expect Blackluster Soldier to be dead from these changes unless they also address the skill in a future skill change. It's just that the overall power level of the deck has come down. Think of this as basically stage one of the nerfs to the deck, kind of like how Odd Eyes did. Odd Eyes got hit, people expected the deck to go away. It didn't. It continued to be a part of the metagame. You can expect the same from Blackluster Soldier. As to the other decks, I believe the meta is mostly going to be the same. Rockets may get a skill hit. You may notice that they did not get hit any of their cards at all. They were the third best performing deck of the KC Cup. Konami may decide to just not touch it, but I am at this point expecting them to either increase the amount of rockets you have to play in the deck and thus decrease the back row, or, and I really hope they don't do this, they may require you to send a card back to get the field spell like it did originally, which probably cripples the deck. Besides that, you can expect the meta to kind of be what it already was. Blackluster Soldier, still a part of it. Live Twin, the new up-and-comer. Odd Eyes, again, minus a skill change. And until then, will continue to be one of the best decks. Tenyi got a little slap, but will continue to be extremely relevant. Rockets, Blue Eyes getting a buff. I would also not be surprised if you continued to see some of the one card starter skills like Ubel, Cyber's Clock continuing to do well. Perhaps Destiny Heroes might rise back up a little bit. There were, of course, also some of the fringe decks that saw a lot of success in the tournament themselves, such as S-Force, Salamangreat, all still extremely strong decks, but just not going to be the most popular in terms of representation. Of course, we do have the recent release of Luna Lights. People are still trying to brew with that. Don't be surprised if you get sacked by a Leo Dancer, but it does seem to be a deck that people are still kind of struggling to actually find the right build for. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. How do you expect the meta to change from this ban list? What kind of skill changes would you like to see? Appreciate hearing from you. Take care.